Are your cards worth grading? I've got a full stack of cards that I picked up this past weekend at the Nashville card show. Let's look through them and I can talk to you guys a little bit about what I look for, what my qualifications are, etc. But we got a lot to go through, so let's look at some baseball cards. Now, before we get to the cards, I just want to talk about my general marker that I have, which is a question that I get of how do you determine if a card is worth grading or not? Obviously, the condition on the card matters, but the biggest marker that I have is if a card can get a 10, I think that it is clean enough to potentially grade high enough to get a 10, and I'm able to break even if it gets a 9, then I'm going to consider grading it. Doesn't mean that I'm guaranteed going to do it. And that rule also doesn't necessarily, it's not the be all end all. Sometimes there are cards that it is worth the risk for the upside of the 10, even if I might lose a little bit of money if it's going to 9 because the 10 multiplier is just so big on that specific card. So all of this stuff, none of it should be anything huge. It's all kind of middle of the road, upper middle of the road inventory, but it is all nicer stuff that I would basically consider grading. When I get back from a card show, I go through and I basically sort out what is the nice stuff that I would consider grading and what is the stuff that I probably would not. The things that I'm going to consider grading, I will look at each card individually. That also helps me that then when I'm selling these cards, if I'm selling them raw, I will be able to know if there's anything that's major damage-wise. If it's going to get a 9 and I'm deciding that I'm not going to grade it or I'm not going to risk it personally, that doesn't really need to be disclosed because it's still in mint condition. But sometimes you go through and you find that there is a crease on a card, and then you know, and you're able to disclose that to the people that you're selling your cards to because you want to be transparent. At the volume that I sell, it's not always possible, but this helps me, especially on the nicer stuff, be able to be as transparent as I can be. All right, so basically what I do in this process is I take each card out of the top loader and the sleeve, and I'm going to look. And so you guys can see on this one, that one definitely has some nice surface scratches to it. Probably not one that you would actually be able to, buff those out. Some people use some things like that or even just wipe it away. Definitely not. And that one, honestly, I probably will disclose on this that has that's some serious surface scratching compared to just like standard small issues that I'm not going to risk. And the thing too is that sometimes on these smaller issues, that's not always necessarily something that will mean that I'm right. There is an assumption on my end that I'm not going to risk it. I have had plenty of cards that I've had people send me, or that I have sold, and I have said, so this one, if you see here, a little white on that corner, not worth it. I've had plenty of cards that I know that I have looked over. I have looked at and I said, I don't think it has enough upside in terms of potentially getting a 10, so I'm not going to send it. I have then sold that card, and I know people have told me that they've gotten a 10 on that card. So that's a situation where sometimes I'm too strict, but personally, I would rather be too strict than too lenient, especially with how expensive it is to grade cards. So this one's looking pretty good. It has a little bit of a line here. I don't know if that will wipe away. Let me grab a microfiber towel and we can see if that will. All right, so all that I have here is a microfiber towel. I have a little spray bottle that just has some water in it. Really, you don't want to put anything additional or extra. There was a big period of time in the hobby where there were people doing a lot of the Kurtz card care, things like that, and people still do it, but it comes with a little bit of risk. So that line did not really wipe away. That one is one that I'm probably not going to grade. So that's an example of a card that is really good otherwise, but that single line, it probably could get an SGC 9.5 if I had to guess, but I'm not going to risk that personally. And that's where sometimes, I tend to be stricter than maybe other people do. But back to what you use on your cards. I personally like to be very strict when it comes to what I am using, because what I really don't want to happen is I really do not want to get a submission where I send things in. So this one has just enough white on that top edge. Not going to send it. I don't want to get in a position where I send stuff in and then PSA or SGC or whatever sends it back and says, hey, we think that this may be altered. Or it has the stuff on it that is not okay per our terms and conditions, agreements, whatever you want to call it. So Bobby Witt on the die cut here, this one's looking pretty good to me. You know, there's maybe a little bit of white up here, but on a die cut card, that's one that I'm probably more apt to risk it on. And these are one every like, oh, wait, is that down here? Nope. So look at that. So right here, get my finger on it. Right there, there's a little bit of a surface scratch. So that paired with that back corner, not going to risk it. So I get a lot of cards that have small things like that, that it's just not worth it in my mind. I'd rather sell it raw, be able to get it moved, get it gone, etc., and then be able to move on to the next things. There's a little bit of a smudge up here, but that looks like that may wipe away. But then there's also a little bit of a back edge issue on this bottom there. So again, not going to send it. I'm going to be really curious by the time I've got quite the large stack. I don't know that we're going to go through every single card that I have here, but I'm going to be curious to see how many cards we come through here that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to send that one in. So these are the short prints out of Stadium Club Chrome, the throwback design. So that front looks pretty clean. We've just got a single little bit of dust there, but that wiped away. And then this back edge, that looks pretty good to me. You've got a little bit of surface, a little bit of a line here, but the back is so much less important. It does matter. The back does matter when you are grading cards, but that is one that I will grade. I'm going to risk that. That's probably an SGC card as opposed to a PSA card, but that will stay in my grading pile, and then I keep the top loader so that I can use them again. But when it's going in the grading pile, I use a card saver as opposed to a top loader because that's what all the grading companies want. So I just keep it out, and that kind of helps me keep straight what piles I'm grading and which piles I'm not grading, especially when you're going through so many cards. So this Jose Ramirez, I can't tell if up here there's a little bit of something kind of near the bat and like where the Topps Pristine T is. I'm just going to look at the back of this card. I think there's a little bit of a corner imperfection down there. This is one that I actually think is a prime example of one that I'm going to choose not to grade, but somebody could choose to grade it and potentially do well on it. Again, I tend to be very, very conservative, but Adley now on the Topps Chrome. Now that surface is looking great, very well centered. So the things that you are looking for in case you are newer to the hobby are you are looking for your surface. So how clean is the surface of the card? Your edges. So are there any dings, any, indents, etc. Your corners, as well as then your centering, which is how centered is the card. This one maybe is a little left-right heavy, but I think it's still good enough that I would send that in. It doesn't scream off center to me, so we've now up to 2 cards that we think are worth potentially grading. I've got a fat stack already that I've already gone through, but I figured it'd be fun to take you guys kind of through this. So Pascal Ferreras, not the biggest name prospect-wise, but it is an orange auto. Nice color match there for the Astros. Bowman autos do sell well, even if he's not a huge name. But, that surface is looking pretty clean. You maybe have a little bit of some stuff on this top edge, like so slightly right there. If this back is clean, though, this is probably one that I will risk it on, just mainly in that it's a color match auto numbered out of 25. Just make sure that, yeah, so there's a little bit of, sometimes you get a little bit of dust or stuff like that on the card. You want to make sure as well when you are doing this that you're not getting any fingerprints or anything of that nature on your cards, because those are considered when you are grading. The company is not going to wipe off your cards. They're not going to, unless it's a company that offers that service, like I think. So here on the Salas, you've got a little bit of a scratch. I believe it is right here. So you can see that. Nope, not sending it in. But unless you're a company like Tag, who I think does offer a service where they will offer to clean the card for, like, wipe the card down, make sure there's no fingerprints, dust, etc. on your card. Most companies are not going to do that. They expect you to do that work. So if there's a fingerprint on the card, that will hurt the grade. It's as simple as that. Fingerprint is going to knock you down. So Leo DeVries, I'm probably not gonna. You've got a little bit of something down here. Look on this back as well. Yep, you've got some corner, oh so slight issue there. Again, small stuff, and this is where it's so hard to grade things with quality control, with how Chrome cards are a lot harder in the sense of how delicate the surfaces can be. Xavier Isaac, a very good prospect for the Rays, but it's got some stuff here up by his face. You guys can see that. So that one probably is also not. I'm going to see if that will wipe away. I'm doubtful that it will, but you want to try, because sometimes that stuff that looks like it's really like on the card is actually just like a deeper smudge. But that time it did not wipe away, so I'm not grading it, which is fine. Having raw stuff that will sell well is important. Not everybody wants a graded card. A lot of people like graded cards, but not everybody does. This one's going to be interesting. So Paul Skeens on the first Bowman Chrome. One thing to notice, and my first read is it's not worth grading because it's got a little bit of a scratch and some surface stuff right there. But if you guys look up on the top here, above, it looks like there's like this like dotted line on right there. You can kind of see that on like right above that border. That's how all of the Bowman cards are. So I did not send in a lot of Bowman stuff because I saw that. But then I learned that that's not something that's going to hold your grade back. So that alone would not have done it, but the fact there were those surface issues, not worth it. Not going to send it. Sebastian Walcott, he is a great young prospect in the Ranger system. A little bit of surface stuff hanging out there, but I think that just comes off. It does. It's going to need a wipe down. So I just use, again, just microfiber. If the cloth is too dry, I can also always just put a little bit of water on it, but that's looking pretty good there. That back, so got a little something here, right kind of near the, right below the T, but other than that, and up here as well. So just see if that will wipe off. That one did not. Let me try and, so again, a little spray bottle, literally just a little bit of water, nothing crazy, but I'm going to see whether or not that will wipe away. If it doesn't, we probably won't send it. Again, this is one that very easily, that could slip by, but I tend to be more strict, especially just knowing. So it actually looks like that did get it to wipe away. Let's see. Hang on, let me dry this a little bit more. Yeah, so I think that wiped it away generally. I think now we'll send that. So, and that's where sometimes just having a little bit of, just some water can help kind of move some of that stuff that might just be a little bit more stuck on the card. So, Sebastian Walcott, great prospect whose market has been very, very hot. So, next up, one of my favorite young players, Jackson Chourio on the refractor here out of Bowman Chrome. This is the numbered version, so at $4.99. That surface is looking fairly decent. So you've got some like, I'm trying to see if I can get you guys to see this. It's like the slightest little dot right there. Can't tell whether or not the card is good otherwise. I probably will send it. Let's see what the back looks like. Yeah, I'll probably send that. I'm not sure whether or not that little dot will hurt, but I know that Chourio's a guy who sells kind of regardless. Even in a 9, I think that I can do well here. And for me, given that I play the volume game as well, this is one of those things that I know that my average on these cards comes out to be like $5 a card roughly. So this Bryce Eldridge, you can see right there, surface stuff, that's not coming off by the, be rubbing it, I don't think. Let's see if I can use a little fingernail. Maybe it is. Okay, so that one came off. But I know my averages on this stuff, so if I'm able to, I know that I'm into these roughly for about $5 a piece, taking out the, it's probably actually a little bit less, but taking out some of the higher value singles that I bought at the card show. So that Eldridge, and sometimes despite all that work, you get something that you notice after the fact, little scratch right there, not going to send it. So I'm going to do a few more cards. I don't want to make this video too long. I'm glad that, you know, hey, we've gotten 5 cards thus far that are worth grading in my mind. But I've still got, I mean, I've got stacks on stacks on stacks. But when I'm not making the video and when I'm not trying to take it, so Hagen Smith, you got a little bit of a scratch. Trying to get that to show right up top there. Not going to send it. Scratch like that, I can see, I know that that is deep enough that it's not just going to wipe away. It's just not worth it. So it's always time consuming, and that's one of the things I get a lot of people to ask, like, oh, will this card, little edge issue there, will this card gem, you know, is it safe to assume that every single card that you're selling is not in 10 condition? And the answer on that is no. If a card is a nice card, if it's a $30, $40 card raw and I'm selling it raw, there's probably a solid shot that there's something on it that held me back from saying, yeah, I'm going to send this one in. That doesn't mean that every single card, I mean, I sell 200 cards a stream, that's 400 plus cards a week. Hagen Smith looking pretty good there. I literally can't go through every single card. I take the stuff that I think is a little bit nicer, a little higher end, and I'll look through that. Like Aiden Miller, if this wasn't a first Bowman, I probably would not have looked at this. Just a fuchsia lunar, it's not a crazy rare parallel, it's not super desirable. So Aiden Miller on his thigh right there, you got a little bit of surface stuff, not going to send it. So that's just one that if it's a higher end card and it's raw, you can generally assume that there's probably something slightly wrong with it. I'm not going to sell you guys something that has a crease or has some major damage to it. Oh, so this Soto, the front was looking real good, but this back corner here definitely have some white on it. This is cool though, because this is Soto's, I don't want to call it his like true first Bowman, but very, very cool on this. He's got an International Ink actually like signed card that came out, I believe, before his first Bowman did. So that one's not going to go. Let's do 2 more cards, and then we're going to call it a wrap on this video. Aiden Miller on the Best Ballers, and that is a no, and this one is one that we'll have to disclose some damage on. You guys can see that corner damage there. Definitely a corner ding. So that one's going to go in the same pile as that Bryce Harper. It's a shame, too, because that's a nice card, numbered out of 50. But that's why I do it. On the nicer stuff, I want to be able to tell you guys, and I want you to know, hey, there's properly something wrong with this. That one's not going to gem for you. So last one of the video here that we're going to do, and then I got a lot more to go through while I'm just hanging out, watching some TV, etc. It's nice that this is fairly mindless. It's like this Walcott. I don't know what the heck is up with that surface. But let me try and spray that a little bit, see if that will do anything. I'm doubtful, but we're going to give it a shot. But Walcott, his stuff has been crazy popular lately. Like, can't find it anywhere. He has been very, very hot. So anytime that I see his stuff, I'm definitely grabbing it. And that did wipe away. Okay, so that might have been something from the penny sleeve or something just that was there. So other than that now, we're looking fairly solid. We got a little bit of something here near the first Bowman, unfortunately. Let's see if I can get you guys to see that. It's like right above the N. Right there. So again, super picky. Not going to send it in. So overall, you know, to show you on my process, we had 6 cards that we said, okay, that's probably worth shooting our shot on. And then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So what is that? 18 out of 24. So 75% of the cards that I'm looking at, I'm deeming I'm not going to grade. So I'm fairly strict. Curious if you guys think I'm too strict, not strict enough, etc. These ones will be in a grading pile along with, I'm sure, some of this other stuff that we're going to go through, as well as a bunch of other stuff that I've already sorted through. But hope this was helpful. I'm going to be working on a full like grading guide. It'll be a simpler version, kind of showing you guys how I determine what a card is worth, how I determine the condition, all this and that, all the way through actually sending a card off to grade. So if you guys want to see that, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're going to have some updates on the new collector challenge coming this week. I don't know which one's going to come out first, this video or that video. So you'll know by now, by the time you're seeing this. But we're going to have that. We're going to have some box openings, card show content, etc. You name it. As always, I appreciate you guys checking out the content, engaging, all that jazz. Really, really helps us out. I will catch you guys in the next one.